Talked about old Joey last week, Rogan, but he's been back in the news. Some things popped up.
Has he? I haven't heard anything.
And seems like he's been saying a couple things, or people have found some recordings, or there's a montage floating around of him using some words that I don't think he necessarily should have been using.
Some expletives.
We on the radio.
Yeah.
What do y'all think about this, man? Is this a witch hunt? Are people just trying to come after him at this point and just snowball this thing? Or, how do you guys feel about it? Jay Diff, I'm gonna come to you first. What you think about Rogan and the expletive situation?
Well, what do I feel about Rogan and the expletive situation?
Yeah,
expletive slurs, whatever.
Yeah, I'm trying, man. I only got so much I can.
I mean,
you know what I mean, though.
You're talking about him using the N-word?
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, that sounds better than expletive. Go ahead.
Wish you hadn't counted me first, but
you want me to?
Nah, it's cool.
Okay,
here. It's here now.
All right.
We're here now. There's nothing to fear now.
I don't know, man. It's obviously some stuff he shouldn't have did.
With that,
he took initiative to take it on the chin, so to speak, but still, that doesn't necessarily excuse you for saying it because you knew it was wrong when you said it.
Agreed.
Yep.
It's just weird that these type of things come to light when other people have a specific agenda. So I think they were trying to nail him to the cross based off the COVID podcasts, features or whatnot. That didn't work. Now we have this. I'm not a huge fan of Joe Rogan anyway, and it's not like it was a big secret that he's been doing this type of commentary over the years. It's just a matter of if you were actually paying attention to it or you were a fan of the show. I don't watch his show like that. Like I might catch one or two here and there. So I wasn't privy to what was going on. And I know one of the episodes he talked about, he actually tried to bury himself because he was like, he knew it wasn't right. The one where he talked about going to the movies and
Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
He was saying that the way they cut the montage up wasn't what he was saying. And I actually, what's crazy about this situation is I actually had an experience similar to this as far as somebody not understanding that regardless of the context that you say that word in, you still shouldn't say it, whether you meant it in a malicious way or not.
That's
it's
real.
technically the only privilege that black people have is to keep saying that word. It's our only privilege. So let us have that privilege.
Because you're not going to give us no other one.
Yeah, because we ain't going to get nothing else.
Would you say at least give us that one?
At least give us that one. But regardless of how you cut it, I hate how people always want to point the finger somewhere else whenever these type of situations come up.
Exactly.
As far as, well, this person says it or they say it in this type of music and blah, blah, blah. First of all, this has no bearing on what somebody else is saying or doing. Hip hop is not the end all be all of every situation that happens in America. You can't keep pointing the fingers back to that and say that this is where it lies at. Why can they do it? Because you can't.
It's going to come up every time.
And this is in reference to the word being used in hip hop music and stuff like that.
Yes.
Right. But I mean,
by black artists.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, like again, it's the only privilege that we have. I'm still waiting on my 40 acres and a mule. I want that privilege too. But anyway,
it was Lyndon B. Johnson's fault.
Yeah. Somebody.
Thank you.
Not really, but we won't get into that.
Well, I mean,
So,
technically,
that's part of why they shot Lincoln. But we're not going to do that now.
Yeah. But
I watched a very insightful video about that today.
Yeah,
Oh.
no,
Yeah,
it gets deep.
But yeah, I mean, I'm gonna just leave it at that and let y'all have the floor on it.
I could dig that. Good take. Lone, jump in there, man. What you think?
Yeah,
I mean,
what do you think?
Yeah.
brother. What do you think?
Let me tell you my white perspective.
Everybody
all right?
back up and be quiet while he talks.
Thank you. Give me my privilege,
Yeah,
okay?
take the privilege. You got it.
No, I agree, obviously, with what Terry's saying. It's not really my place to speak on if the word is good or not. You know what I mean?
I can dig it. Yeah.
So the only thing that I can kind of speak on in general is like watching Joe Rogan and how he moves through it, and kind of relating my own personal past and my own path towards understanding race better as somebody who grew up in the Midwest in a small town where it was something that I had to grow and learn more about throughout time.
Yeah.
So I understand my path, and I look at Joe Rogan, and when I watched his apology, I genuinely thought, oh, this is actually a real apology. Like, was the whole, even in his apology, he screwed up, right? He even said, I think you said in the pre-show, or even before we were on, you're like, he even, like, when he said the Planet of the Apes comments, right after he said them, he was like, oh, that's racist.
That's racist, yep.
But in his apology, he was like, well, I didn't mean it as being racist.
You already said it,
It doesn't
brother.
matter.
Yeah, you already said it.
And granted, that's an 11-year-old clip that he had already pulled off of all platforms. Like, he deleted it. Somebody just randomly found a clip of it. So he had acknowledged that already. You know, it's not the same, but it kind of makes me think of a little bit of like the Kevin Hart situation and stuff where he had to re-apologize for stuff to some extent. Obviously it's different. Obviously it's different. And you know, they concatenized and put all his use of the N-word together, and him. I'll say this. I understand where he was coming from as far as like, it is a unique thing. When he said that it's a unique thing that there's like this one word that we can't say, it is an interesting phenomenon. I will agree with that. But because there is no other word that we really can't say in the English language. And it's a unique thing to come from a place of privilege to where you're not used to having something that you can't do. And then all of a sudden there's like something that you can't do and you don't fully understand. Like, you get it, but you don't at the same time. Now I'm irrelevant. I've never said the word,
right?
Even though I've been coaxed to say the word.
Oh yeah.
By black friends.
Yes. Yeah.
Just say it.
Say it. Yeah.
You're okay. You
Never
get a
take
pass.
the bait. Never take
And I
the
was
bait.
like-
Please don't take the bait.
And I was like, I think I'm good.
Yeah.
And so without even knowing, I kind of passed my own test.
You smart.
No, that was lucky. But it's, but at the same time, like, I feel like the context, what I liked about his apology was that we kind of talked about this last week on the COVID stuff a little bit and his apology there. I just appreciate the fact, all things aside, I appreciate the fact that he at least addressed it. I don't really think he had to. Maybe he did. I know they're pulling his episodes and stuff, but like,
Are they?
I think they dropped like 70 to 100 episodes of his.
Oh, well, he still got money.
Yeah, he's got plenty of money. Like, he still doesn't.
Oh, he's still going to get the $100 million.
got the paper, bro.
Yeah,
You're whack.
like, he doesn't really have to, I think, at this point. But I can appreciate it, and I do when I look at him from my white lens. I see somebody who seems like he's learning from things. Even the fact that he came out and said he's like, no, there's actually no. When he said there's no good way to say, there's no context for saying this word as a white
That would
person.
be appropriate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Before, that was really his entire argument for saying it in the past at all. So he acknowledged that in his apology, that part. So to me, I'm like, all right, he acknowledged the part that, to me, from my perspective, again, just a white perspective, I'm like, okay. So I'm like, he's growing, and hopefully white people see him and see what he's taking accountability for, and they're like, okay, well, maybe I should relook at this. So that's how I view it. But, if you guys are upset, or anybody that's upset that this actually affects, because it doesn't really affect me in that direct type of way.
Right.
I mean, that's you guys' prerogative, right? So I can only speak on like that,
Of course, yeah.
The only caveat out of this, or silver lining, so to speak, is Spotify is donating $100 million.
I saw that, but I couldn't find an article on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we
didn't
need
hear
to
that.
follow the money on that, because you can say a lot of things.
Right.
They said
That's what they're saying. They're saying
After
that they're not
George
gonna
Floyd, a
back
lot of
off.
companies said a lot of things.
Yeah, they're saying they're not gonna take the money back from Joe Rogan. What they're gonna do to try to counteract what's going on is donate $100 million to certain charities. No, like y'all said, it's all talk at this point. It's all in the action. So
Maybe they should
that
donate
remains to be seen.
it to black podcasters. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
Or maybe they should just take that money and, I don't know, give it to the artists that keep their entire platform afloat.
Both would be fine for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I prefer. Yeah.
Yeah, new old heads could use some of that.
Yeah, we
use a
are a
little bit of
predominantly black podcast.
Yeah, just throw us a little bit of that. Yeah, we appreciate it. All right, Jay Moore, what you think, man?
Well, I think, you guys have hit the nail right on the head. But, we go through this. It seems like, every 2 or 3 years with somebody white who just gets real familiar. I think it was like maybe the first episode where I guested on. We talked about Bill Maher thinking he could pop fly with the word.
That's right.
And he really thought he got off of funny. And, he didn't. And it didn't work out for him. We can go back to Don Imus. He didn't say the word, but what he said was pretty much just as inflammatory and just as racist.
Yeah, that was trash.
But the thing is, every time one of these things happen, and Jay Diff touched on this a little bit, all of a sudden, instead of having a conversation about the white person who did something wrong, people are like, well, what about these rappers and all? Like, hip hop is always the scapegoat. And what you'll compare, whatever white person slipped up and did what they weren't supposed to do, and you'll turn it back on hip hop. And now we have that conversation. It never made, like, I already had my issues with Oprah. It is what it is. But I'll just never forget when Don Imus said what he said.
Yeah.
It went from us castigating him and letting him know, hey, you're wrong, to all of a sudden all these rappers had to come on Oprah and say, I'm sorry, and hey, we need to have this conversation. I was like, wait a minute, we're not done with Buddy over here.
No.
Facts.
All right? We can get to that later. And we have those conversations offline all the time.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, we cannot hold a white person accountable without also deciding that we're going to we're gonna dirty up hip hop's name,
Right.
without it's like we can't just do the one thing. Just like there are people who are like, oh, what about the artists at the Super Bowl this week? They all say that word. Wait a minute, can we talk?
Eminem does it.
Can we? Yeah, exactly. Eminem is smart enough not to do it on any of his records.
Yeah.
He got caught up in some stuff, with the Source magazine. But as soon as he came, he was like, I was wrong. I'm sorry. This is not the way to move
At all.
So there have been too many examples of white people who've gotten caught. And the thing is, sometimes we do have to dig deeper because, and I'm here to spit fire today. Somebody like Tucker Carlson, I've never heard him say the word, but I know how he feels because he knows how to move and shake and use the dog whistles to let us know exactly where he's coming from, especially when he talks about anything involving black people.
Yeah.
So
You know what those
We have
dinners
to-
look like
yeah, so
and sound like.
we have to go ahead and have these real conversations.
Say dinners.
Yeah, the dinners that he has with his friends and colleagues.
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I really know what they sound like if you ever want to ask.
but it really is a thing to where, okay, if we're gonna take on this racism thing, a lot of people think, okay, well, I don't say the N-word, so I'm not racist. I'd be like, nah, I see how you move and shake out here. You're definitely racist.
Yeah, your
Uh,
actions. your actions
That
will
is
take care of
definitely my argument across the board.
And plus with Joe Rogan, and like I said, some of these clips are so old, it look like they were shot on VHS. Like, I don't know
They were.
where
They were
some of
mad
this
old.
stuff
Some of
is
them
coming
were.
from.
Stuff is mad old.
And the thing is, I've seen and heard this montage before. It's like for artists, not artists or comedians or podcasters, whatever, whenever they want to slander you and get you out of the paint, it's like, hey, let's bring this up again. They every few years they bring up the same thing with Charlemagne the God. Let's get him out of here. And it never works. But it's like, that's what they do to certain people who they just want to get out of the paint whenever they say something that maybe they don't disagree with. But I will say this has been these past couple weeks, or week or so, it's been a real thing where we've had to look. If you look at what happened to Joe Rogan, he's been able to make his apology, still keep doing his podcast, say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it this way. And people will be like, okay, we get it. Whoopi Goldberg had to take 2 weeks off of work.
Man.
And she
Don't get me
apologized
started, bro.
immediately. So
Yeah.
here is a black woman, last name Goldberg, who identifies as Jewish, who sometimes you just got to keep your mouth shut if you don't know how to answer
In
the
Black History Month.
Yeah, during Black History
Talk
Month.
to 'em.
And sometimes you have to keep your mouth shut if you can't answer the follow-up questions. That's why some people ask me about certain things. I'll be like, look, I don't have all the information.
Wait, she's got if I'm not mistaken, I heard you say she had to take 2 weeks, right? It was
Oh no, yes, they gave
2
her
weeks off.
gave her 2 weeks.
But she came out the gate with
An apology, and said, okay, this is where I got it wrong.
Yeah.
She had the same apologetic spirit as Joe Rogan, but she's got to sit down for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So we got to look at how
that's tough.
How,
That's true.
How so many people wind up having to navigate these media spaces and how they're treated, even if they say I'm sorry. Because honestly, Joe Rogan could have been like, "It is what it is, man. I got my $100,
$100, brother.
$100 million
More than $100.
rather. If it was $100 and you're doing all this, and you're doing a lot.
Man.
But he got his $100 million. They're not going to take it back from him.
Might have been
And
more sincere if it was
if it was
$100.
$100,
the
you know.
apology would have been it had music behind it and everything. If it was
since he could have doubled down, because a lot of, like I said, a lot of his fans, when you look at his his social media, they're like, hey, we're with you, man. It's okay. And it looks like a bunch of people that went to the Capitol on January 6th.
Go ahead, Long.
I was just gonna say, like, no, to his point, like, I think we have to kind of I try to appreciate things for what they are. Like, there's only so much that Joe Rogan can actually do too
Yep.
at this point. Like, we have to, I personally feel like in any type of situation, I'm not even talking about like people getting caught up in race related stuff and all that other stuff. Like we have to allow people the ability to grow from things that they mess up on.
Right.
Because if we don't, then what are we doing? Like, because we all have things that we have screwed up on.
Look, I'll say this for Joe Rogan, for Whoopi Goldberg, for anybody. I don't want any of you in these, especially because everybody thinks they can just say some wild stuff. And because a lot of people, they're doing it for the clicks. They're doing it for whatever. Yeah. Some people really get caught out saying just stuff that they didn't really mean and they just said it wrong. I don't want anybody, especially me, doing what we do to be defined by your worst moment. Because if we're going to do that, then there's a lot of people that we got to get out the paint.
I'm perfectly fine airing out some of the stuff that I've done in the past, but I'm not going to. You're going to have to search it up and cancel it. Because
wait till you run for office, it all come out.
Yeah, we're going to have a VHS tape alone saying some stuff.
I feel like if that would happen, then they could search and they can bring it up and they can blow the new old heads up more. It's just going to help the podcast in the long run. I mean, look, I can step down. We can bring somebody else on.
I'm just glad there's no Instagram video during the OMG days at the Casbah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I mean, 10 years and 20 years ago. I mean, it's crazy. Like the culture's changed. You know, the acceptability of stuff and
of a lot of stuff.
It's just, that's what I mean, across the board. So like stuff that I mean,
watch any movie from the 80s.
Yeah.
It's, you know, like there's stuff that I know.
A lot of stuff.
There's stuff that I know better now that back then I didn't really even know better.
I know stuff that was going on in high school.
Man.
That I'm pretty sure it's probably still going on to this day in some areas. But I mean, the things that you could get away with back in the late 90s and early 2000s. It was a different era, man. And it doesn't even seem like it was that long ago.
When
you put it in context, it's crazy because we're saying it doesn't feel that long ago. So imagine our parents who came up during the civil rights movement and things like that.
Yeah,
they're reflecting back those same amount of years that we're doing right now. So that just shows how far or how close even that we are to when that was even going on, which is crazy.
Yeah. The only thing that I would continue to say is like what I've seen across the board too with the Whoopi stuff too.
Yeah.
Is I've seen a lot of like random anti-Semitism, which is not cool either. Like just because there's one bad doesn't mean that you can go and say some other bad stuff about some stuff.
Well, you know, that's
100%.
Because sometimes because
like, oh yeah, you're fat.
When people, you know, a lot of people have been emboldened by Joe Rogan and they don't want him to change. They hear the things that he says is like, yeah, more of that.
It gives them power and energy.
Yeah.
I saw a very weird clip today of it was like March 2020-ish where Joe Rogan had on a doctor talking about vaccinations, and Joe Rogan was 100% like, why are people so afraid of vaccinations? They've saved so much. It was weird.
So I saw
wild. That. It was so wild because it's completely anti.
It was he had a pro-vaccination stand. It was really weird.
So I didn't see that. The interesting thing about Rogan, which I can kind of appreciate, and then we can move on or whatever, but he is kind of a sponge, man. Like whoever he has in front of him, he does kind of just talk to people. And he's at least open enough to have like different opinions and stuff. And I can appreciate that because that's how I try to be. Like I try to be as open as possible and try not to be as stuck in my ways, because I remember what it's like to be stuck in your ways and then years later find out that you're like on some foul stuff. Like
self-awareness.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you know, just like there are things that if you asked me about 20 years ago, I'd have had some disturbing things to tell you.
Man, listen.
Would have sounded a little different, huh?
You wouldn't have had me on this podcast. You believe that?
But we're great people now.
Yeah, 100%. No flaws.
We are perfect.
Yeah, zero flaws.
Man, if I could just explain how perfect we are.
Man.
Yeah. Well, I know it was some rough
like
time.
a Disney movie.
Yeah, it's just, man, like a diverse one.
Yeah. We don't talk about Bruno. For those that picked up on that,
I see what you did
Disney
there.
movie.
Yeah, I see what you did there.